change sometimes on a street, and ArcGIS has like smaller segments, they divide up streets. So you can see maybe there's a bad intersection, or maybe there's a hill that crops up on a road, and that will lower the score because all these numbers are now kind of crunching together all this data and arriving at these determinations. So that's how that's all behind the comfort map now, is this rich data we have. So here's some examples. And what I liked about this, like when we saw this, so all three of us who are like the main workers on the map ride. Brian lives in Arlington, I live in Arlington, Matthew rides around Arlington. So we looked at it and said, like, does this add up to what we've experienced? And I felt like it did. So like, here's North Woodstock Street, which I've been on a bike. And this is green. So this is most comfortable, the best you can get. And it is, because we can just look at it and say, oh, yes, Eric.
Well, so is that really, to me, I'm not sure I would see that as most comfortable. Just first, you're right up against parked cars, so you have likelihood of getting doored. You're not separated. This is obviously a higher speed road because it has a yellow center line in it. So to me, it really depends on the traffic volume. You know, if the traffic volume is really low, then and you know there aren't many parkers, yeah, that's not a problem. If the traffic volume is high, or there's people that speed on here because it looks like you got some pretty wide lanes, then that might not be comfortable for me. So those are sort of the factors that I think about, you know, in terms of choosing something. I would probably, if there was a parallel street that you know, was a residential street, I would go down the residential street potentially than I before I would go down this one. But
Hmm.
just a thought.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's fair. I like this particular part. I think it makes sense to me. And like that's where everybody's different, I guess. And that's also where some of this stuff, it cancels other things out. So like, yes, it may be a wider road, but it is residential. So that's a lot of points in its favor. The pavement looks really good. I don't think Woodstock is like terribly busy. Like it's not the same thing as if you were on Langston Boulevard, or like, so I hear what you're saying, but like that's how probably this score ended up being where it was. It was in the good zone, that it had a lot of things that were favorable, that it's determined that it's pretty good. And like if you're not super experienced or confident, you probably feel pretty good riding here. Um, but yes, you're right. There could definitely be more comfortable places. Um, And then this is another one. So this got blue. This is Wilson Boulevard at Road Street. And so the good we see here is the protected bike lane. It had a low pavement condition index score, which I don't know exactly what it was, but that would lower the score. And there had been reported behavioral issues. So my guess is like blocked, the bike lane's blocked probably. And then the bus lane and bus stops, that would interfere with your riding. So that would make this one a little lower. Um, then this is Fairfax Drive at North Monroe Street. And this, I believe, with the data now has gotten a little bit of a lower rating than it had on the old map. And I know Cynthia was always surprised that Fairfax Drive scored as high as it did on the old map, and always thought it should be lower. So it has the bike lane, even slope, but it's a busy road, a lot of traffic, people go fast. I've never ridden down Fairfax Drive in the bike lane without it being blocked, like in multiple places. And sometimes I make it a little game to see like how many times will the lane be blocked. And like the other day, I went maybe a mile down the road and it was blocked twice. So like there's always some kind of, so that hurts Fairfax Drive a lot. So this is an example of like only it was less comfortable. It was one of the lower ratings a road could get, short of saying like don't ride there at all. And then yes, here's a gray road, which I also agree with. So this is like not recommended. This is by Washington Liberty High School, Washington Boulevard, and sad and ironic that it's by a school where we would like kids to be biking. There's no bike lane. You can see how many cars there are at all the time. I believe the speed limit's 30 miles an hour, which feels fast on that like relatively narrow road. So all of that combines to just make it not great. There's like nowhere to ride.
That's my neighborhood. That's why I joined.
I know, right? It's still like that. So these are like some of the determinations we made. So the next steps, and then took us over time, but then I want to hear more. So yes, I'm working through feedback. I got feedback from a couple BAC members, and I have one more to work through, and I have some feedback from Pam. And then we're hoping to send it to the printer next week. The new map will have a landing page, and then it will link to the methodology and the interactive online map. The ArcGIS map will be updated annually, and the comfort map every 2 years. And then maybe we'll host group rides, exploring different routes. I'm trying to think of ways to make the map more alive and get people out there. And like another thing about it is like, this is our first year doing it with the data. And so I felt like, let's just get it done. Let's get it done right. And then the next iteration, we can like get under the hood more and say, is this what we want? Or because like, you know, something you were saying, Eric, about like you might ride on a neighborhood street. So this map deliberately highlights streets where there is bike infrastructure or streets that are really bad that we want to tell you, like, don't ride here. But like the neighborhood streets have a built-in assumption that they're going to be pretty safe already. So they're not pulled out, because if we showed the ratings for every single road, the map would be so cluttered. So in trying to come up with a way to show like, well, what do we represent? That was what we came up with. It's like showing where the bike lanes are and the major routes. But like maybe a future map, we'd say, no, like we do want to show neighborhood routes, and then we'll pull those out, and they all have scores. So we can easily do that. So the point is like, it's a new way. I think it's really cool. I love it. I learned a lot, and I enjoyed working on it. So I hope people benefit from it and like it and learn. And another thing that Pam said, you know, I saw your comments saying about all the construction. And yes, that has been a challenge of the timing of this map, that there's a lot of construction going on right now between like National Landing and then Columbia Pike, and trying to represent that at this moment in time, and knowing that like 6 months from now, it won't look that way anymore. I'm not quite sure if this always happens, but like that's how it's played out right now. So we'll do the best we can to represent current conditions. And I don't know, Pam, like maybe we can indicate somewhere that this will change. I'm trying to figure out where to fit that. Because right now I put the month that it will publish on it, so then people will know that, not just 2024, but October 2024. So that's it, and I've made us go over. So I haven't left time for anybody to say anything, but please.
I have a couple quick questions.
Sure.
I guess first, when is the last time you're taking comments? When is that closing?
Mike Hanna asked for an extension. So I gave him until close of business tomorrow, and he sent his comments today anyway. But yeah, like I did say end of day tomorrow. So if you want to send anything, I can definitely go through, and yeah, go right ahead, you know.
Okay. And then just again, as a pedestrian committee here, I guess I would ask, I mean, there certainly are a lot of benefits for pedestrians to look at this. Is there any future thought to incorporate something along those preferred routes as well, to indicate whether or not there's sidewalks along the route or something like that, that might be also kind of make it more comfortable for people riding, but also for pedestrians, that it gives them a little more information if they're utilizing the map for walking.
Like I have that very idea, because why don't we have, but like that's a whole other ball of wax. But yes, like David, when they did that person walked around and surveyed all the sidewalks a few years ago and assessed conditions. I wonder if something like that could ever be used for walking, like some sort of walking project.
That's a question, and I don't know the answer to that. There's a fellow named Jeremy Hassan who's come to this PAC a couple of times and talked about that project. The last we heard directly from him, they had an ocean of data that they hadn't fully decided what they could do with. Then the next thing I heard about it is they were using that to tell them where to go and grind pavement where it was in really bad condition. So it's a great question. I don't know the quick answer to it. It has historically been difficult to map sidewalks because they weren't put into the county's GIS system as linear features. They were put in as shapes, as polygons, and they couldn't be linked and rooted and networked together. So it might be we can turn Matthew on it. Matthew is a whiz at this stuff.
Oh, he's amazing. But that's what I mean, I thought that would be really fun, and useful. I would like to know if there's a sidewalk or not, and if it's like even or wide or. So yes, I think this sort of thing could be done.
Great.
Also. So
we're about almost approaching 10 minutes after. I want to make I want to first ask you, do you or David have any other announcements about any upcoming events or things that we should know about?
Well, just quickly, that we have the Roots of Resilience Walk with the Black Heritage Museum and Arlington Historical Society on October 26th, which Pam is helping with, which is great. So that will be a good outreach opportunity, that if we have that brochure or flyer by then, I can definitely take it. And then we're doing Lighten Up Arlington again this year, October 29th and 30th and November 1st. And that's in Roslyn. And then National Landing will be at the water park. So Roslyn Tuesday, National Landing Wednesday, and then we'll go trick-or-treating on Halloween, and then November 1st on Friday, the WNOD at Columbia Pike. So those are our main things. And then we have another walk with the Friends of the Mount Vernon Trail that Lauren will attend on November 15th. And they have a huge following. So I'm sure we could take that flyer there. Like, we have 3 big opportunities coming up to interact with people who are walking. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
I'll be very brief about a couple of the sort of bigger longer timeline projects I'm involved with that are the CC to DCA bridge that folks know about between Crystal City and the airport is going well. It's a big major project that will take years, but we're now working very closely with the airport's highway consultants. The airport is redoing its own roadway network, and so the airport bridge has to weave through in this sort of 3D chess form to get from Crystal City to the airport without running into new roads. So it's been very interesting for me as a non-engineer to participate in these meetings with a bunch of bridge engineers talking to each other about technical stuff. But it's going very well. Very positive attitude about that. Everybody's cooperating very, very well. And the other thing I mentioned earlier that affects what we now call the Arlington Memorial Trail, for a long time was being called the Cemetery Wall Trail. It's been on the county's planning boards for 50 years. It was in the very, very first inkling of a bicycle plan back in the early 1970s as a trail around the cemetery to connect the end of Columbia Pike with Memorial Avenue. And I've been attached to that project for my entire time with the county. Very challenging, lots of challenging neighbors. The cemetery, the VDOT, it's VDOT right away, Anyway, sort of a breakthrough is happening, and I really have my fingers crossed that this will boost that project back into motion, is that the Arlington National Cemetery is a very ambitious plan for their main entrance on Memorial Avenue. And they're having a public meeting to roll out their preferred alternative next week. So I will be going to that. And they are clearly accepting the idea that the trail that we've been proposing should be built outside their property, but it should be built and come up to Memorial Avenue and connect and interact with all the other infrastructure they want to build, including a new welcome center and a bus route. Anyway, so that's very exciting. Again, long-term, the county still doesn't have all the money it takes to build the trail, but it'd be a great project to build, and I'm watching it very closely. So I'll be going to a public meeting about that. They have, if you go to Arlington National Cemetery, they have a whole rollout of their planning for that. Very ambitious. They're going to spend a lot of money, build a whole new welcome center and all that. Anyway, so those are the couple of big highlights. And I'm going to, my home work environment is the Transportation Planning and Capital Projects Bureau, and that's where the new transportation plan is being driven from. So I'm going to be very involved in that in the normal course of events for the next couple of years.
Thank you.
Yay.
I actually have one announcement that I didn't realize until I kind of looked at my schedule. The external stakeholders meeting for Vision Zero is on October 24th. It may be a live meeting or an in-person meeting, or it may not. I haven't heard the details yet. They said stay tuned for more. But I am actually going to be out of town that day, and probably out of not have access to attend it even virtually. So I was wondering if someone might volunteer to sit in at that meeting. That would be a Thursday evening. It would be October 24th from 7 to 9. So are there any volunteers? Should I send this out to other folks to see if I can get a volunteer?
Yeah, I cannot. That's the first SPRC for River House.
Okay.
Yeah, Eric, why don't you poll the entire committee and
I
see
will.
if somebody can be around for that?
Okay. Okay. Very good.
I am planning to be at it, but I wouldn't be able to represent.
Right.
I can always be a backup.
Understood. But yeah, I would love to be there. I didn't realize that I had two different things happening at the same time. So, all right. Well, thank everyone for spending an extra 15 minutes this evening, and we really thought it was a very good meeting. I wish we would have had more of our membership here, because unfortunately we can't approve the minutes. I don't think we have quite enough folks, but thanks to everyone and our other guests that provided a lot of good information about Gateway Park, and I think that's it. I think we can turn off the recording.
I will stop the recording. Yep.
Thank you.
Stop the recording. Stop the transmission.